Hi, I'm here with Henrik Green from Volvo. He's the head of R&D, and we're currently sitting in a Volvo car. Specifically, do you know what model this is?
This is the XC40.
Okay, but this is not the average model. This is a pre-production model, and you guys have actually injected Google Assistant, Google almost entirely into this device, into this car. What's different about this car? Last year at Google I/O, you guys had an announcement with Android Auto, and you were showcasing how Android Auto works in your cars. And traditionally, current Volvo cars use a third-party infotainment system, if I'm correct?
Yes.
But now the main announcement is at a certain point, I don't know if it's 2019 or 2020, but you guys are just going to switch to Google and completely use Google services for your main dashboard infotainment system.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, last year we were here, we talked a lot about the Android operating system, that we would go for that in our infotainment system. We had a very early concept prototype that we showed some thoughts about. So what we're looking at here today is that we're announcing that not only do we go with the Android automotive embedded OS, but we're also on top of that adding the Google services, which would be the Google Assistant, the Google Maps, and the Google Play Store. And that will be fully integrated here in the future infotainment system as well on top of the Android. And what we're looking at here today is actually a snapshot of the real code that we are developing here for the future model coming out late next year.
And how radical is this compared to what you guys have right now? Like, I assume this is a drastic change in terms of you're getting far more raw data just from using Google services. But for example, let's take Maps, for example. This is providing users with a lot more data. How exactly is that going to, do you think, revolutionize Volvo cars?
Well, I mean, the services here it should be a big improvement for the consumer. I mean, we would sit here with the fantastic map system and the assistant that Google is developing. They would be always connected, and we're shipping these together with the connectivity. And so that the maps would be updated, traffic information would be updated. The assistant would be, part of the whole assistant experience that is relying on the back end, the cloud of Google. And that whole experience now we're integrating in the car so that as a driver you have that at your fingertips.
And at what point do you think you guys decided to go with this switch rather than developing your own, continuing to use either a third-party system or developing your own system? At what point do you guys realize that, hey, let's maybe hand this off to another software company like Google?
Well, I mean, at least it started for me a couple of years back when we were integrating the Android Auto and the Apple CarPlay into the existing infotainment system, and you would, mirror your phone up on the screen, which is a great system. But then it sort of immediately came to me that this should be an integrated OS, part of the ecosystem by itself, not through a smartphone that you're carrying or a cable. And then we met with the Google team, and they have had the same thought, I guess, for a while, and presented their idea, and we sort of connected around that idea. So I don't know the exact timing now, but do you know, Jed, when we really decided to go for this? It must have been a year and a half back. Yeah, and so we kicked off a concept team, we did a proof of concept. We talked about it at the I/O last year, and now we are running in full program mode since then.
And when do you think this technology will come down to Volvo cars for the first time?
I mean, what we said is we're launching this in our first vehicle by the end of next year.
End of next year.
And then we're rolling it out after that in more multiple vehicles. So it's broadening the offer after that.
So in terms of choosing an assistant, because assistant is very much a key important part of this interface, because a lot of the ways you're interacting with it is talking to the assistant. How did you guys think that you should differentiate between choosing Google Assistant, whereas some other manufacturers who are going with Alexa, for example? Like obviously there are those devices that you can plug in and you can talk to Alexa. Yeah. Some people might already use Alexa in the home. Yeah. Do you think that's going to cause some kind of confusion, or do you think is that a conscious decision that we're going to go with Google because it has this vast array of other services?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very conscious decision that we have chosen to work with the Google Assistant as the integrated assistant that is most closely connected to the car function and that sort of interacts and are fully integrated into the rest of the car. Now that said, I believe there will be other assistants available on the Android platform that you could use for their particular services. So for instance, if you want to go shopping through an Alexa system, that should be possible in the future as well.
And that ties into the Google Play Store, which is also available. Does that mean anyone who sort of develops apps for this Android Auto-esque interface, they can just you can actually just go and download third-party apps?
Exactly.
And is there a sort of a Volvo program that you guys will add your own apps as well, or is this largely going to stick to third-party developers?
No, I mean, part of this, now we talked a lot about the fantastic Google services, but of course, a big portion of what's in there for the consumer here is the vast array of options that comes together with the Play Store and all the basically thousands of third-party apps. And there will be, I assume, a lot more coming out when people start to develop and innovate around that. So that's one of the key benefits we see here, to be open to that, to access that ecosystem of third-party apps. Of course, given that they are all approved and safe to use in a car environment, so there is distraction and other things that needs to be very carefully thought about before they will be approved. But that's a key here, and that should really be part of the upside for the customer.
And final question, I haven't really driven a new car. I'm still using my car from 2004.
Yeah.
So a lot of this is like game changing for me personally.
Yeah.
But at the same time, with all this visual data right here, a lot of the things like when you have issues with your car, is that also going to be able to be surfaced here, or is that right there through the main speedometer over there?
Yeah, I mean, what we really work with here now is to make the car experience great. We have the center stack display here, which is sort of the heart of the infotainment system. We have the cluster display right in front of you, which is more related closely to what's going on as a driver and needs to be carefully thought about not to be too distractive in order to interrupt what you're doing with your eyes on the road. And then on the windscreen there is a heads-up display, which would be the most sort of non-interfering kind of display that we use for traffic valid information. But all of these three screens can be used and integrated in a careful way, so that, for instance, in navigation, you would have the whole map in the center stack, you would have part of the map in your cluster, and you can get the turn-by-turn direction in the heads-up display, which would be right where you need it in front of your eyes without taking your eyes off the road.
Basically minimizing the way of where your direction is.
Exactly.
Pace is directed.
Exactly.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.